In this lesson, we continue to work through the full-face helmet model. We're going to start with the ridges on the back of the helmet. This was another boundary surface feature. The thing to remember about the boundary surface is that it works best if it's a four-sided surface as the result. Now, the first surface we created was not four-sided. It was technically only two sides. If we roll this back and have a look, the first side would be this side that goes all the way around, and the second side would be the bottom. Now, this does cause a slight problem, which we may run into later on. It's called a degeneracy, and by using the face curves feature, you can select a face, and if all of the face curves come to a point, this is what's known as a degeneracy. It's basically a zero-length side, and it happens when you create a feature where all of the sketches coincide at a single point on the part. When you have a zero-length side, mathematics does not like zero very much, and CAD models don't like zero very much. So this will cause us a problem that we will see later on, and there are a couple of ways of dealing with it, which we'll take a look at. Let's continue for the time being and look at creating these ridges in the back. The trim where you see the surface kind of doubling up on itself. If I were to click the green check right now, would likely get an error or an ugly looking area on the surface. Sometimes if you're pushing connectors too hard, the surfaces will buckle or ripple or do things like this. So you need to watch out for those. The error that you will get when SolidWorks gives you an error rather than just bad geometry will be that the surface is self-intersecting. We can spread these out or bring them closer together. But you see, as we start to get more radical in the changes, you can see that it's starting to buckle here a little bit. So let's pull this down. And that buckling is gone. Okay, let's rename this surface Cosmetic Ridges. And then continue to roll back a couple of features. First, I have an offset, and if we take a look at this offset, we can see one of the problems that we had mentioned earlier. I'm going to set this to use edges for the display. Let's edit the feature. This offset took the main surface of the helmet and it offset it to the inside by 0.1 inches. Now, if we take a look at this closely, we can see right in here that there's a little notch taken out of the surface. Let's look at this again with the face curves function. This little notch is directly above the 0 point of the initial surface. And if we get the face curves of the offset instead of the original, we see that that's exactly what's happened. The curvature around the degenerate point is often suspect. There's often a little bit of a problem with it. And so when you offset it, especially when you offset it to the inside, SolidWorks typically has a problem with that. If you were to shell out a part like this or to try to thicken it later on, or even sometimes putting a fillet over this 0 point, the degenerate point, SolidWorks could fail, or it could just tell you that you've got bad geometry in your part. You have to know this sort of thing when you're dealing with surface models, because it can prevent you from moving forward on a project. Okay, let's exit out of the face curves feature here. What we're doing next is creating a mouth vent, and we're going to use this offset surface to help us get there.